I took a stroll downtown this evening when I heard music echo through the night. So I started running so I wouldn't be too late. In the neon light, what the music gon' reveal through the night.
Welcome everyone to Coaching in Session. My name is Michael Rearden, and I'll be your mindset coach today. And today we're going to be talking about health coaching. Now, you might think like your health is the top of the top, the best of the best. Well, there's always room for improvement. But when is enough improvement, right? It can be difficult for you to realize or to understand that, all right, I'm making improvements in my life for my body, my life, whatever it be, right? The problem that many people face is that they ignore their body. If they get a little tweak in their back or in their arm or pain in their leg, they say, you know what, this is just associated with age. I'm getting older. Yeah, well, with age comes wisdom. So why are we not becoming wise into what our body is telling us? We choose to ignore that. And sometimes we need a wake-up call. And those wake-up calls can be in the form of depression, anxiety, fear, trauma, where it finally gets to the breaking point and the water finally overflows into the sense of now the things that we were trying to contain, those fears, those doubts, those anxieties, etc. Now they're overflowing into our life. And we need to do something very quickly. Otherwise, we're going to be washed away and we need to figure out how to swim. And it's not so much in the physical swimming aspect, it's about the mental swimming aspect, because we can look in the mirror and we can really get to an understanding of how we look. And we can say we're big and beautiful. Yeah, we can say we are fit and friendly, or we can say we're athletic build and things like that, or we are chunky athletic. I mean, there's so many things that we can say to validate our body type. But how do we get to that body type? Typically, it just doesn't happen overnight. It's going to be a flow of habits. You gain weight by eating a surplus of food, so your body needs a certain amount of calories a day. And that's going to be called your maintenance calories. Sometimes you might have low maintenance calories, especially if you have a very inactive life. So if you don't hike, if you don't go to the gym, if you are sitting at a desk all day, and then you come home and you sit on the sofa all night, you have a very inactive life. And there's nothing wrong with having an inactive life. I don't want you to think that you need to start to change your life and get up and start moving. But to talk about maintenance calories, you have a certain amount of calories that your body needs in order to function. Right? And then we look at the macros, how many proteins, how many carbs, how many fats you need to operate under those maintenance calories. There's a balance to what your body needs in order to maintain itself. Sometimes we don't even become aware of that balance. We don't become aware of what our body needs to maintain itself. We give our body what we want, what the brain wants. And it's easy for the brain to say, well, we want this pizza, we want this cake, we want this coffee. Because we become addicted. We become filled with habits that are not conducive to a healthy body, healthy mind. But what is our relationship with food, with exercise, with being fit, being healthy? I think that's an important conversation for us to understand. And today I have Laura Folks that's going to be coming on as a holistic health coach. And she's going to be talking about the work she does and how she helps people understand their relationship with food. So here's that interview with Laura and myself. Welcome, Laura Folks, to Coaching in Session. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for coming on. Today, I have you on as a certified holistic health coach, and we're going to be talking about some of the work you do. So in your own words, can you explain what a certified holistic health coach does and how you help people?
Sure. Yeah. So I work with people to help them end self-sabotage around food without needing more willpower or discipline. And really the goal is to transform their relationship with food by helping them figure out how they are using food as a form of protection and to center safety.
And it's because like people might be using food as a coping mechanism for depression?
It could be. It could be depression. It could be a lot of my clients feel some level of anxiety. There can be so many different reasons. There's 4 common triggers that lead people to eat. And I'll just dive into those now. And there's a lot more detail we can go into, but they're feeling tired, which can be physical or emotional depletion, feeling anxious, which is what I was just talking about. And with anxiety, it's usually there's some level of uncertainty present as well, because we don't learn how to deal with uncertainty. So it shows up as anxiety in our bodies. and then feeling inadequate, which doesn't necessarily mean that we feel inadequate in all areas of our life. It could be in certain aspects where we feel not enough or not good enough, and then feeling lonely. And even when we have a great support system around, we still can feel isolated, alone, or lonely. So those are some of the common themes that tend to show up for people that trigger or trip off an unconscious cycle that leads them to eat out of alignment with their goals.
And especially here in America, we deal a lot with stress, anxiety, fear. And there's a lot of people who kind of just live with that. And that can be unhealthy, where they are in this constant state of unknowing themselves, their true power. And they just look for band-aids, is what I like to call them. Like we find a band-aid to make us feel better. It could be in the sense of food. It could be in the sense of lying to ourselves, saying, you know what, everything is going to be okay. Why do you think that happens primarily in first world countries? I'm sure it might happen in third world, second world countries, but like when we look at countries that have been established, overall general health and wellness kind of seems to go down into the pits.
Yeah, well, I think there's a few different reasons, but one of them, when you said lying to themselves, I think part of it is sometimes we don't necessarily know what is really important to us or even the totality of who we are. Like there's a lot of socialization that happens from society, from our families of origin, in schools, in religious institutions. There can be a lot of socialization where we internalize things and we might be trying to live towards expectations that are for other people that basically got us some level of acknowledgement or had gotten us success in many ways in the past. And when we got success, we would be like, oh, this works, so let me keep doing this. An example of that is one of my clients, her mom was somewhat like emotionally abusive growing up. But she would always talk about the value of having more money, having a bigger house, like more of the material things. And so my client is constantly feeling like she needs to have more because she's trying to get this recognition or acceptance from her mom. But as we really dug into her values and what's important to her, she's like, I don't really care. As long as my basic needs are met, I don't really care about the material things, but she's constantly striving for them because she's trying to be accepted by her mom. And so what we're trying to figure out for her, or what we are working towards figuring out, is what does she actually value? And she's also striving for some level of perfection, but what does this perfection actually look like? It's almost like she's got such a high bar, but she doesn't even know what the bar is. And so it keeps raising and raising and raising, and she can never actually hit it or accomplish it, but it's also not coming from within. So there's a lot of lack of satisfaction. And then that's where she turns to food because she's burning herself out. She feels really unfulfilled and unsatisfied because making more money and having a bigger house or having a nicer car isn't really important to her. And so it's not satisfying or fulfilling. Once she gets it, she just feels like she needs more because she hasn't gotten that acceptance that she didn't even realize that she was striving for. And as we talked about it, she's like, do I even need to be accepted by my mom? Is that even really important to me?
Yeah, I mean, when we look at the mindset that we gain or develop as children, it kind of leads us down a path where it's like, okay, we have to please our parents, we have to please society, we have to try to please ourselves. And we look at, well, what pleased my parents? And we look at mom and dad and look, okay, well, they did this. It seems like that's what adults do. So then that's what they associate what success is or what happiness is. And oftentimes when many people, they give themselves happiness, it's always at a destination. It's always like, I'll be happy when, right? That contingency there. Sometimes it takes a long time to get there. And then so they're like, okay, I'm just not happy. And it's because they are giving themselves happiness into the future. So they say, well, how can I cope? Well, okay, I could drink, I can do drugs, I can not take care of myself, eat unhealthy, things like that. And that lack of self-care, it hurts us in the long run because it takes us further from happiness because now we're going in the wrong direction almost. I know the work that you do as a health coach is trying to help people get back on track. How do you help people become aware of the track that they should be on? And not so much the track that society has said, not the track that parents have said, or maybe the track that they're giving themselves a facade of belief that they should be on.
Well, I think one of the biggest things is you said, like, it's almost kicking the can down the road too, of like, once I reach X, then I'll be happy. And so I hear that a lot of like, once I reach my weight goal, then I'll be more comfortable and I'll feel better about myself. So I will put myself out there for dating, or I will just be able to show up more as myself. That can be true for sure. And there's so many of my clients who have reached their weight loss goal at some point and they still weren't happy. And how many people reach a goal? And like I was talking about with that one client who has reached her financial goals, then she needs to get more and she's reached $1 million in her business and it's still not enough. And so when will it actually be enough? But part of it's because it's not actually coming from within, right? A lot of times we're not actually clear on what it is that we really want or need. It's what we think will get us acceptance. And then when it feels like we're falling short on that or not getting accepted, or we're still not comfortable, we haven't addressed why we are eating in the first place and talking about weight specifically or our eating. If we are working towards a weight loss goal to try to get us to a place where we think we're going to be happier, but we're not addressing why we're feeling unfulfilled or unsatisfied to begin with, then it's always going to feel like we're falling short. So we really need to figure out, how have we been conditioned? How are we looking at things in black and white, all or nothing, seeing that there are other options and ways to choose beyond just having to use food as safety or working towards these goals that aren't necessarily aligned with us and our values and what it is that we want to choose. And it's not to say that reaching a weight goal isn't important or isn't something that you want to work towards, but it's a matter of not only looking at why you want to do that, but also why are you not doing that? And that's what we do throughout the process I take my clients through, is looking at the why not. So why is it that you can plan ahead, you can have your healthy food on hand, but then you still drive through the fast food drive-through on the way home? Or why is it that you'll say, oh, I'm not going to have much to drink when you go out with friends, and then you end up drinking 2 bottles of wine? Or you might say, like, I'm going to go to the gym, and you have your clothes laid out, but then you don't do it. So we really need to look at that why not. And so that's what I'm really looking at with people, is how are they self-sabotaging and how are they trying to protect themselves with these quote unquote bad habits that are keeping them from reaching their goal.
And when we look at health, it's not just about the foods we eat or going to the gym or the scale. It's also about mindset and our habits, right? Looking at that, the why is so important too, because if you don't understand why you do the things you do, then it's going to be difficult to change the things that you want. And what I find is that many people shine in some area, right? So for example, you might be an awesome cook. And so you are the best cook around, but you might not be disciplined in going shopping. So you just order favor or something for the food to come to you. Because if you notice, when you go to the grocery store, you buy too much groceries. You buy Doritos that you shouldn't be buying. You buy frozen pizzas, maybe your favorite ice cream. So you're buying a lot of unnecessary things. Even though you love cooking, you might say, well, I can just make a frozen pizza now, or a TV dinner. So it's just easier sometimes. It's more convenient for people to say, you know what, I don't want to cook, even though I'm amazing at it. And maybe there's also a shadow side to that. I'm not a good cook. So I'm just going to go out and get something easy, something quick, because I don't want to cook something and it just go to waste because the food that I make is not good or something like that. So we give ourselves a lot of insecurities from that. And it all stems from, again, how we're thinking. And the quality of someone's thoughts to look at their health, I think is important, because we only have one body, and it's important to take care of that body, because once you damage it enough, it's going to be difficult to repair, versus looking at your body and saying, okay, where am I today? And then making the adjustments to be better. And it's not so much the scale. I can't even tell you the last time I got on the scale, probably like maybe 2 months ago. And I have a scale in the bathroom. It's just that I think I had to do it because I was going on like a private plane or something. So they had to know my weight. So I was like, okay, let me go on the scale. Boom. All right, now I know my weight. But I don't necessarily look at the scale to determine, oh, am I healthy? I look at the mirror. I said, all right, how do I feel? How do I look? And I said, okay, I look good. How do I feel? Do I feel good? Do I feel confident? Do I feel strong? Am I energetic? And it's so important for me to feel energetic, because my days are so full. I know many people, especially like your client who has reached $1 million business, that right there is a feat in itself. That's amazing. And for her to have put in the energy and the dedication into that, just shifting that to focus on your health and your fitness and your energy levels, but intrinsically, not just so much more materialistically. I think that's difficult for people, especially here in America, because we look at materials as such a big thing, where it's like, what car are you driving? How big is your house? What clothes are you wearing? All of those things are a factor. How do you tell people that those things are important, but your body, your energy levels is even more important because it can lead you to something more?
Well, it's figuring out what really is important to them. Is their energy level what is important to them, or is it a matter of how they're feeling in their bodies? And one thing I want to point out is that with looking in the mirror and seeing like how you feel and how healthy you feel, to give an example. So I'm just thinking about when I was going through my, not only my weight loss journey, like I lost 60 pounds from my heaviest. And even after I lost 60 pounds, and I've maintained that for years now. And there were days where I would feel really comfortable and confident in my body and feel like I looked really good and felt really good. And then there were other days where I'd look in the mirror and be like, "Ooh, I'm fat. I need to lose weight. I need to get back on track. I need to go back on a diet." And my weight hadn't changed and my body didn't change. And so sometimes the way that we feel or how we are viewing ourselves can shift and change, but our bodies actually haven't changed. So sometimes it can be really hard to even just look at yourself in the mirror and say, "Oh, I am healthy. I feel healthy." Because there might be days that you do feel healthy. And then there might be days that you don't feel great in your body. And your body doesn't change overnight, typically, unless there's some like level of bloating or something that's happening, but rare that it would change overnight. So what we want to look at is like what actually changed in that situation? Because yes, it's partially mindset, but it's also what are we making things mean about us? So I found for myself that when I was feeling fat or feeling like I needed to lose weight or just wasn't feeling comfortable in my body, there was usually some level of uncertainty or vulnerability. And especially this was happening when I was first starting out in my business. So it would typically come up when I was feeling vulnerable or uncertain with something in my business, whether my revenue wasn't where I was hoping it was going to be, or I was doing a big presentation that was making me feel really vulnerable, or I was going to be putting out like a new newsletter, a blog post, or something that was going to feel vulnerable. There was usually a new level there that was triggering me to feel not as comfortable and confident in my body. So I just wanted to share that just because, yeah, we can have these ideas in mind of like, how do we want to measure feeling healthy or feeling good in our bodies? And yes, it is partially mindset, but it's also, there can be these unconscious things that are happening or things that are triggering us in ways that we don't realize that make it hard to be in our body or to feel comfortable, confident, healthy, any of that stuff. And so we really want to address like anytime we're having food or body noise. So when I say food or body noise, it's really thinking about food in an unproductive way, thinking about our bodies. We're thinking I should, or I shouldn't, or I must, or I have to, or feeling like we are having mental gymnastics around food, binge eating, any of that is a symptom that there's something else happening. And we want to dig into that to see what is actually coming up and how are we being triggered? What's the meaning that we're making of a situation to see what's really important to us and what do we want to choose?
And I think the most important aspect is understanding healthy habits more so than anything. Yes, mindset is a role or plays a role, or part of it, because if someone is extremely mindful of what they do, there might be some blind spots. And so those blind spots can be detrimental to how they feel. And similar to how you said the triggers. Well, those triggers, right? Where do they stem from? Insecurity, fear, doubt. All of those have to be addressed at some point. And again, I'm sure that's some of the work that you do helping clients with those triggers. But when you understand who you are, when you look in the mirror and you say, okay, I'm this person, it's not I'm this person today and I'm not this person tomorrow, or I feel this way today and tomorrow I'm going to feel crappy. Yes, the body's going to change, especially as you age. I remember when I was 28, my body did a total 180. And it's like, what happened to my body? I used to be able to eat all this food and not gain a single ounce. But then I'm like, okay, now I'm gaining. So my body changed. So I had to pivot. I had to adjust. And I think sometimes people, they don't like to look on the inside. That's something that they don't like to do. They throw everything in a corner. My wife, before we got married, that is what she did. She was overweight. She was, I would say, like almost 100 pounds overweight. And so I was like, okay, well, why are we doing that? And she had the tendency of saying, you know what, I'm just going to throw things into a corner. and I'm not going to worry about them because this is too much work, it's too much stress. And then so as we were married, she kind of understood mindset. She kind of understood, okay, what am I doing with myself? And she realized, like, she got to that point where it's like, I'm doing harm to my body by just tossing things away, not paying attention. And it was because she was listening to the podcast, reading blogs, and I wasn't even really coaching her. She would come to the gym with me, things like that. We would do some training, but this was her. This was her, an internal fight that she was doing. I was basically just the facilitator, maybe the conductor, where it's just like, you make the music. I'm just here as a guide. So she was able to make a huge body transformation as she was going. It wasn't like, okay, when I reach this weight, it was, I'm going to be happy. It was always looking in the mirror. And she was like, I feel good. I look good. And it didn't matter if she was at 200 pounds or at 150. It was still the same mindset. It was still the same affirmation. I look good. I feel good. And sometimes these affirmations can be a good thing, and sometimes they can be a bad thing because there could be a lie, right? For example, maybe you're 300 pounds obese and you're like, I look in the mirror, you're like, I look fabulous. Well, not saying that you don't look fabulous, but how do you really feel, right? Because on the inside, are you tossing things into the corner? Sometimes that's what we do. And if you are perfectly fine with your body and you don't want to make any changes, don't make any changes, because you don't have to bend to the whims of the world or to what other people say you should become. You decide who you become. And I think what happens is that we give ourselves the idea of what other people believe, of what other people say we should do, versus looking at ourselves and really saying, what do I want for myself? And I think that's a very important thing to say to yourself, especially when you're looking at the relationship you have with food, the relationship you have with your body, and the relationship you have with your mind.
For sure. And I will say for a lot of my clients too, is sometimes there's a disconnect and they're not even sure what they want or what they need or what their body wants, because they have been so conditioned or have been so disconnected with themselves because they have been living in a way that they were taught that their needs and wants didn't matter or using their voice was unsafe. And so it can be really challenging for them to think about, what is it that I even want or need? Because it's not always coming from truly what their body wants and needs or what their mind wants and needs. They're not really sure, right? So there's even that piece of it is some people are able to connect with that and other people aren't. And so if you're not, then we want to really look at, and it is a process to figure out and to get into, to reconnect with yourself. And some of my clients too, they think of their body from here up, which is from their neck up. And they are really uncomfortable because it has been unsafe to be in their body, or they don't trust themselves. They don't trust their bodies. And so we need to be able to test and experiment with new behaviors to see that they are safe, or they can build resilience to see that they can be safe in their bodies and out of their heads. So I wanted to share that too, because yes, it's very important. And some people are not in a place where they can get there yet. And it doesn't mean they can't, but if they do keep putting things in the corner or in a box, then there's that saying of what resists persists and what we resolve dissolves. And it sounds like your wife was resisting it, but she was still carrying it with her, right? But when she was able to start to resolve some of those things and really address the things that she was putting in the corner, then it started to dissolve. And that's really helpful and important to get through too. But it's not easy either. It's not an easy process.
Change is not easy. Change can be one of the most difficult things someone can do, whether it be changing their mindset, changing their body, changing their habits, career, whatever, right? If you have to change it, it's going to be difficult. Typically, people just don't change for the sake of change, because the body or the brain understands that change requires a huge amount of effort, huge amount of energy. And so if you want to make a change, typically it's going to be more challenging to do it without a trauma. So many people wait for that trauma to happen, heart attack, stroke, diabetes, where they finally get that doctor's note and they're like, hey, you need to fix this very quickly. Otherwise, you only have this many years left, right? And then it's kind of like a wake-up call. And we're like, okay, I'm going to wake up. And going back to something you said, I think it's important to understand this, the difference between wants and needs. For example, I might want cake. I might want ice cream. I might want to go to the gym. I might want to maybe go to the movies and eat some popcorn, but do I need it, right? And we get into the idea of want and need. maybe talking about that a little bit. And then if you can, maybe talk about some of the things that you want in your life and then some of the things that you need in life. And then talking about the appreciating of having the things that you want sometimes.
And even with that, I would say that sometimes, it makes me think about mindful eating or just like being more mindful too. Sometimes we might know what we need, which is to be healthier or to work out and to exercise. But there can still be a disconnect of knowing you need to do that and then being able to follow through with that and having the desire. Like so many of my clients, they know what to do and they know what they should be doing, but they're not sticking with it and they don't know why. So I have clients who are diabetic, have heart conditions. They have had those tests. Like the doctors will say, you need to lose weight, you need to get healthy. And they want to do that, but they're not able to stick with it and they don't know why. So there can be that need and there also can be that want. But if they're not able to stick with it, we really want to figure out, going back to that why not? Why are they not doing those things? And that's where those behaviors are typically protective. And so even when we have the desire, if we're not sticking with it, there's probably something else that's happening underneath the surface. And often when we aren't, I'm going to go through this cycle that's typically happening just because I think it might help some people to realize, like, if they're binge eating, mindlessly eating, it could be drinking more than you'd like, mindless shopping, mindless scrolling on social media, any of those habits that we consider to be like bad habits or our coping mechanisms in some way. That can be another place where they're like, I know I shouldn't be doing this stuff and I want to be more productive or doing things in a different way. But then they're not able to stop it. They're usually in this unconscious cycle. So it starts with a trigger, which are the 4 triggers I mentioned earlier of feeling tired, anxious, inadequate, or lonely. Then we have a story. And the story was usually created earlier in our lives when we didn't have the full context of what was happening in a situation. So we made meaning from that situation about us. And as an example, I was bullied in middle school and high school. And so I developed a story of not wanting to be misunderstood because if there was a risk of being misunderstood, then I could fail and end up being rejected. And that story did serve me in some ways, but then there were many times that it was keeping me stuck and was trying to protect me. From the story, then we have stress reactions. And just like animals, they go into fight, flight, or freeze mode when they're at physical threat. We have stress reactions when our belonging is at threat, which are to compete, avoid, or accommodate. From those stress reactions, there's behaviors. And the behaviors in general for the compete stress reaction is when we compare ourselves to other people. It can be comparing our body or skill sets to another person. It can even be comparing a current version of ourselves to a past version of ourselves. And also with the compete stress reaction, we often feel like we're falling behind. So it's almost like we're running a marathon and the finish line keeps moving, but we can never really catch up. So we take on more to try to get ahead, but then it just burns us out. Accommodating is when we put other people's needs ahead of our own. We want to keep the peace, don't want to rock the boat. And so we often fall off of our own to-do list. And then feeling or avoiding is when we will procrastinate and fall into analysis paralysis and build things up to make them feel so overwhelming that we end up freezing and not taking action. So we've got the trigger, the story, the stress reaction, the behavior. We eat out of alignment with our goals. We lose self-trust, and then it loops back into the trigger. The reason I wanted to share that is because we can have these needs, but if we're in this cycle, it can be really hard for us to stick with what we know would be really helpful for us. And so we want to figure out, how are these bad habits actually protective behaviors so that we can start to see that people can be safe, and also discerning and seeing when is their story helpful and when is that a part of their identity that they want to choose to use. Like there can be times where I'm okay being misunderstood. And then there are other times where, and I've healed the story a lot, but there can be other times where it feels really vulnerable and exposing to be misunderstood, or feels a lot more risky. And then also same with like accommodating or competing. What are the times that it's okay to compromise or put somebody else's needs ahead of mine? And when is it that we need to find more of that win-win in the collaborative solution? And by being able to see that there are other options as opposed to just getting chosen, getting acknowledgement, getting accepted, whatever it is that we're striving for, then we can more naturally be able to function in a way that is in alignment with us, our values, our goals, what's important to us. And then it doesn't feel like there's such a big disconnect between wanting to do the right thing and knowing you need to do it, but then not being able to. So you are more naturally able to work towards those things that are important to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I just have a question. Where would self-care fit into the cycle? Or is that coming after?
Well, self-care, typically when we're in that cycle, it's hard for us to even focus on ourselves or to prioritize self-care because we're in a state of feeling like we're in these triggers and we're numbing out or using things to cope. And this is where we get disconnected from ourselves too. So kind of what I was talking about earlier is if you're experiencing those triggers, if you're in your story and you don't want to feel that, that's when it's like, let me get out of my body. And sometimes like we're in our head so much because we have the guilt, we have shame, we are beating ourselves up for our choices. And if we're feeling inadequate, for instance, then it might be like, how could you have done that? How could you have failed? Why did you binge on all of that food when you know you shouldn't have done it? So now you've fallen off track. You might as well just keep going. And so then it's like you have kind of abandon yourself in a way to not feel that. And so that's where, even though we might want to take care of ourselves, it can be really hard to when we're in that because we don't want to feel the feelings that are coming up when we're in the cycle.
But what about the people who say they're going to give themselves a self-care day? And the self-care day is I'm going to eat ice cream, I'm going to drink wine, I'm going to watch Netflix, I'm going to order pizza. So they're doing all of these things. And maybe they didn't even get into the aspect of looking at their habits. They didn't look at healthy eating or conscious eating. They just say, okay, well, it's Friday. I had a stressful week and now I'm going to de-stress. This is my self-care day. Looking at that definition of self-care versus the true definition of self-care. One is saying, okay, I need this because if not, I'm going to be stressed out, burned out, all of those negative things. And then the other one is truly looking on the inside and saying, I need this so my body can be more energetic, I can feel more fulfilled, and going on from there.
To me, that sounds like in that example is that if somebody feels like, oh, I've had a stressful week, and it's more of not necessarily a self-care thing, it's more of I deserve this, or I think of it sounds like they've been feeling constricted throughout the week or deprived in some way. And it could be deprived, like if they've been eating healthy all week and depriving themselves, or quote unquote healthy, whatever that looks like, or they have just been feeling deprived of having rest or recharging time. It seems like they've been feeling like constricted or restricted throughout the week. And Friday is that opportunity to like, okay, I have a time to release. And so that's where they're like, I deserve this. I'm going to eat all the food. When in actuality, is that really what they needed? Or is it that they were feeling so restricted and burnt out from the week that we need to figure out what got them to that place to feel so depleted and feeling so constricted that they feel like they need that release. And it's almost like the release valve, right, at the end of the week. So yes, it might be that they feel like that's self-care, but that to me is a sign or a symptom that they were actually in that cycle that was happening throughout the week. And this is their opportunity to like be a little bit out of that cycle. But they're using it as a way to say, I deserve it. So we would want to dig into that to see how was their story coming up? What was it they actually needed? How can we make sure that they don't get to a place where they're feeling so deprived and depleted by the end of the week that they need to deserve to eat all of the ice cream and pizza and everything?
And when someone is in that cycle, maybe they're unaware that they're in that cycle, and maybe they don't want to admit they're in that cycle.
Yep.
And I know your ideal client would be someone who wants to get out of that cycle, right? They say, okay, I'm in this cycle. I want to change, right? And then they say, hey, Laura, I want to change this. I want to fix my habits. I want to fix my health, right? All aspects, mind, body, whatever. Is there something that you can tell people today, right now, that will be that shock that finally makes them aware, saying, I need to make a change today? And it's not that they should make the change or that they have to, right? Getting back to the need and want, but looking at the aspect of at what point do you need a holistic health coach, right? Getting into that way of thinking.
I think that if there's any part of that cycle that I shared that makes you like sit back and nod and think, yeah, I can relate to that. Yep, that makes sense. Yeah, I can see that how that happens. Like if I'm binge eating or mindlessly eating, then what's really helpful is to be able to observe yourself in a way that is not necessarily from a place of judgment, but looking at and bringing curiosity to what are my patterns? What are my triggers? Because a lot of times people think that they are very self-aware, but they're really self-critical. And by being able to identify their story and their triggers and being able to see what's actually happening when they're eating out of alignment with their goals, it can help to decrease the guilt and shame, because we're seeing that it's not necessarily what my clients find really helpful from the process that we go through, and just even identifying their story is being able to see that it's not that they're lacking willpower or discipline, but there's something deeper that's happening when there's an emotional vulnerability there. And by being able to identify what that is, then it can provide some hope that things can change, as opposed to being stuck in that cycle. So if there's any parts of those triggers where you're starting to think, okay, yeah, maybe feeling tired or anxious, inadequate, or lonely, any of those are resonating, and you're kind of curious as to what could my story be, or what is my cycle? What leads me to binge eat? If there's a little hint of curiosity, then it could be a time to start to explore what that is. And I'll give everybody a tool that they can use so they can start to explore that for themselves. I do have a free workbook on my website that people can download to help guide you towards figuring out those tail emotions, the tired, anxious, inadequate, or lonely, and which ones resonate with you. But something that you can do, and it's outlined more in the workbook, but is being able to look back on a day where you ate out of alignment with your goals or felt like you were self-sabotaging, and really plotting out all the times that you thought about food, thought about your body, or were just eating out of alignment with your goals, and thinking about what was happening. And we want to look at the circumstances and what did that trigger in you? So we really want it to be more of an internal focus of, were there some of those triggers that were present? And really jotting down all of the times throughout the day something came up, so we can get an idea of what the triggers are, and also seeing that it's not one big event that leads us to eat. It's usually a buildup of a lot of them. So mapping out that day and journaling to see what was actually happening can be really helpful to give you that starting point to observe yourself without that judgment, to see what is leading you to eat out of alignment with your goals.
Yeah, those are great tips for making someone aware, because I think sometimes people just say, okay, I listened to the episode, and they don't have direction of, should I contact this person? Because I remember even when I do podcasts and I'm on air, people were always like hesitant to contact me. And they call me maybe sometimes a year later, where I have had people contact me a year later saying, hey, I saw you on this show. And I'm thinking in my head, that was like a year ago. And I was like, okay, not a problem. Tell me what's going on. They're like, yeah, I wrote down your number and wanted to, figure things out, but they waited a year for it. And so like to really tell people like, hey, if you're in this spot, reach out to me, right? We have consultations, we have discovery calls where we can just see what's going on, right? See where you are. And then we can discuss. I think so many people are unwilling to open up the envelope to their life and to their insecurities and doubts and fears and really become aware of them. So they say, I'm just going to toss them away, but to be brave, be courageous and say, you know what, I'm going to reach out to Laura today. And I'm going to say, you know what, I might not get the answers I want to hear, but I'm going to get the answers I need to hear. And I think that's important for us to begin to make the change that we need in our life and our body, because we only get one of them. And it's important that we take care of that body. So if I can from you, Laura, it's been a great discussion, great conversation. Please share with us any last words, final words you would like to say to the audience. And then please tell people how they can find you.
Great. I will definitely do that. One thing I want to say too about reaching out, the stuff is really vulnerable. Even reaching out and asking for support can be really vulnerable, which is, I think, part of the reason why people don't always do it right away, because you don't know what is going to be on the other end. Sometimes even when I start with a client, they're like, I binged last night because I'm thinking about the fact that I'm going to have to change everything. And that's not how it works. Like, I don't tell people like, okay, now's the time you stop eating all of your favorite foods and you're going to be deprived from here on out. That's not the goal of this, but it can be very vulnerable. And also I know that a lot of my clients and people I work with, they feel really isolated and alone in their relationship with food. It's not something that they share with people often. There can be some shame in it. I just want people to know that I like to create a safe space for people where it is judgment free, so that if that is something that's holding you back from reaching out, I hope that you have gotten a feel that I don't create judgment in my sessions or in my calls and stuff. And it can be a safe space, and that you're not alone in this too. A lot of times people will say, you probably haven't heard this before. And I'm like, I have. It's not usually too unique of a situation. So you're not alone. It can be vulnerable, but you just have to find the right person who can support you so that you don't have to go through this process and the journey on your own too. The way that people can find me is on my website. It's laurabfolks.com. I do have that workbook that I mentioned, as well as a curiosity call. It's a 40-minute call where you can share your challenges with your relationship with food, goals, the type of support you're looking for. I share more about my approach and answer any questions you have. And it is a safe, judgment-free space. And hopefully you'll walk away with some insights about how things can change for you. And then I'm also on all the social media, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, those channels as well.
And I'll put all that information in the description box below so people can easily find you. And I encourage people, if they're in an unhealthy relationship with food, to reach out to Laura. She's going to be a sweet person to talk to. And then just during those 40 minutes, even if you gave her that chance, that opportunity, she's going to show you what you can do to change your life and how you can begin to grow in your energy and to grow in your mind and grow in your body. And it's so important today, especially today, where there's so many insecurities in the world. You don't have to be one of them, right? You have all the ability to be amazing and to be more. So choose to be more. And I want to thank you so much, Laura, for coming on, spending some time with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
All right, everyone, I'd like to thank you so much for watching the interview with Laura and myself. As you can see, she's knowledgeable about the work she does. She's helped so many people get into a better relationship with food. And it's important that we start sooner than later, because you can be in your 50s and you finally have a run-in with the doctor and the doctor gave you some bad news, or you have some type of accident or some type of health issue that comes about due to your lack of self-care, lack of being astute, and maybe also your lack of taking care of yourself. So it's important to understand that. And Laura's personality is sweet. She's going to be a sweet soul, very caring, very loving. She is almost as sweet as cherry pie. But when it comes to me, I'm very blunt. I'm demanding in the sense of what I want from my client and what I want you to understand. It's almost militant. But again, Laura, very sweet. And I always tell people, you can choose whatever coach you want. You don't need me. You don't need a coach that's not going to be along with your personality. You find someone who's going to be exactly what you need. Now, if you are hungry, for example, maybe you got a pizza, but you don't like a certain topping on your pizza. Let's say you don't like sardines. Okay, well, I'm going to get you sardine pizza because you said you wanted pizza, right? I don't want this pizza. I don't want sardine pizza. I want pepperoni pizza. Well, too bad you got sardine pizza, right? No. When you're choosing a coach, the coach can be like the pizza. Yeah, you want a coach, right? But then the toppings, what type of personality do you want? What type of intricacies do you want to dive into? And it's important for you to realize that, because making sure you get a good coach that's going to help you along the path to where you want to be is important. And I always say, everyone should have a coach. You don't necessarily need a coach, but having a coach makes your life so much more simple. And I'm all about simplicity. If I can delegate the work, if I can have someone help me in different areas of my life to make myself better, to make me more efficient, that is a win-win in my book. And it should be a win-win in your book, because at the end of the day, you become better. You win. You create better habits. You have more energy. You're more happy. You're more fulfilled. And those are all things that the brain wants naturally. It's just sometimes we have to uncover our wants and our desires and then figure out what needs to be adjusted. And change is not going to be easy again, but you can change your whole entire life around. You just have to make the conscious effort first and then give yourself some action. One of the easiest actions you can do is reaching out to a coach, because you can give them a call, maybe send them an email, and you can talk about what you like to talk about, whether it be health, whether it be mindset, whether it be communications, money. I mean, you name it. We had that coach here on Coaching in Session. So find the flavor that you're looking for, and then start to look at areas of your life that you want to see improvement in. Don't be afraid to invest in yourself. Don't be afraid to make a difference in your life. because the dividends that you create yourself from small investment in your life for better habits, better mindset, that's going to lead you to more later on. And it might not seem like that right now because you might be without, but understand the end goal is going to be more. You're going to be more than what you are today, whether it be mentally, physically, or all the above. So begin to make the change in your life for the better. My name is Michael Rearden. I'm a mindset coach. If you have any questions, you can email me coachinginsession@gmail.com, and I'll see everyone on the next episode of Coaching in Session. Till then, everyone, take care.